Hey, what's up? Andrew Kramer here, and welcome to another very exciting tutorial. Today, we're going to take a look at creating some machine gun fire using a particle system. Now, this tutorial was actually inspired by some of these brand new first-person shooter games that have recently come out. I'm sure you guys have heard of them. They're really popular. Anyway, they've been going head-to-head, and I got a chance to play one of them, and it made me think about something really interesting. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So I was playing the brand new version of Doom, and really cool game. Just got to load up there. Hang on a second. I'm going to put my processor on turbo. So we're going to go ahead and just start a new game here. Knee deep. Yeah, that'll be good. All right, so here we go. Man, it's been a while. I gotta get a couple of these. What are we talking about? Oh, okay. So when I shoot the wall, we can actually see like a ricochet. And depending on the type of game, if you shoot, the water, you'll see water splashes. You shoot wood, you'll see wood pieces. You shoot a body, you'll see blood. And I was thinking that's really cool because it actually. Oh, it's okay. I'm okay. I'll get this one. Anyways, the point is, when you're shooting different surfaces, you actually see different debris patterns. So I was thinking, that's pretty cool because it knows what you're shooting, and I wonder if you could do something like that in After Effects. So what I've done is I set up a comp here. We have some concrete, we have some dirt, and we actually have a little bit of water over here to the side. And I basically set up a way that will intelligently generate ricochets depending on the surface. So let's take a look. So if we look closely, we can see, some water splashes here, and then we can see some big dirt hits, and then we just see some bullets leaving their marks on the wall back here. So we have 3 surfaces set up, and what's cool is it's all procedural. So basically I have a null object and I'm animating it around as if I were shooting it at my scene. So what's cool is we can use the motion sketch. So if I have my gun layer selected, I could come over here, click on the start capture, and now wherever I point and drag is where I'll shoot the gun. So I'll shoot it right here a little bit, and then I'll shoot it in the water, and then I'll go back on the wall, write my name. So now if I look at this, we can see a new pattern of machine gun fire. And in the final output, it looks something like this. All right, so pretty cool. Another thing too is I can control the gunfire rate. So if it's too much, I can turn it down. And basically, we're emitting less particles per second. So that is the idea. So let's go and take a look at how we might set this up. So come over here to the project, and we'll just create a new comp. We'll do 960 by 540. And then I have a background layer here, just some ruins, and I'll right click and choose fit to comp with. So let's go and set up our particle system that's going to actually be emitting these particles. So I'm going to create a new solid, and we'll call this particular. And I'll choose effect trap code particular. And I'm using particular 2 here. Now I want to create a null object that's going to be used as our gun. So we'll click on this, we'll hit return, type gun. And in particular, we'll bring up the emitter, and then I'll click on the gun and I'll hit P. That'll bring up the position. And then I'll alt click on the emitter position and then drag that to the gun position. So now if I animate the position of this null object, so if I just keyframe it, you can see that the particles are following where it goes. So that's what we want. But let's make some changes to the way the particles look. So let's go in here. Let's turn the velocity down. We'll turn all this down. And that way, when the particles emit, they'll stay exactly where they were emitted from. So in this case, we want them to, stay on the surface. So if I turn this down a little bit, maybe a little more, we can see the gunfire. All right, so this looks pretty good, but let's see if we can make it look more like, like dirt's getting kicked up. So what I've done is I've created some pre-made particle sprite. So I have this wall debris, which is just some dust. I've got this dirt debris, and I've got some water, let's see, like a water splash. All of these elements come from our Action Essentials 2 collection. So it's got the debris, and it's got smoke and fire and blood and all the cool stuff you need to make action movies. It's really easy to use. So it's pre-keyed. So when you bring it into After Effects, the background's already gone. All you have to do is stick it on top of your footage. Let me show you that idea really quick. So I could come in here and I could, instead of doing a particle emitter, I could just come in here, find that dirt charge, bring it out. Here it is. And with a little bit of work, I could basically place this in my scene, and then I could choose Edit, Duplicate, I could offset it, and then move it over here, and I can maybe randomize the size of it, and then I could duplicate it again, move it over, randomize the size. And remember, the collection comes with like 500 different elements, so there's a bunch of different debris hits, so you don't have to use the exact same one every time. So we're setting it up, but I've only got 3 bullets down, and I've already got 3 layers. So this could take some time. Even if we're clever, this could take a little bit of work, and especially to randomize it. And that's what's great about particles, is you can control a lot of the same or similar type of thing with random settings and things like that. So that's not the best way. So instead, we're going to take this, say, dirt debris particle that I've already set up, which is right here, and we're going to bring it out into our comp. So we can just shut it off, and we'll turn the particular layer back on. So what I want to do now is set up the particle to emit that dirt debris video clip. So if we go to the particle setting, we can change the particle type to a sprite. Now a sprite is an image that always faces the camera. And in this case, we're going to use the image of the dirt debris and place that in the texture, and it'll warn us. And then we're going to set it to start at birth and play once. So now if we look at this, it's probably way too small. So let's turn the particle size up. And so now we can see we have some crazy stuff going on. Not quite what we're looking for. So let's set the particle rate to about 10. And so now we can see the particles being emitted. Maybe we could take the position of the gun and move it down here into the dirt where it makes a little bit more sense. And we'll just, just create a quick little setup. So this looks pretty good, but they look very similar. It looks, we have that same problem here. So we can control some of the random settings. So first of all, we can control the size random. So we turn that up. And now they're not all exactly the same. We can turn up the opacity random just a little bit. And we also have in the rotation control some random rotation. So if we set this to about 5, they'll start rotating slightly. And so this isn't perfect, but it's definitely starting to look a little bit more random. Now, for a little bit more control, Particular has an option to, maybe hard to see, but it has an option to split the clip. So you can change this to split clip and play once. And when you do that, you have an option now to set the number of clips. So if you have 3 different dirt debris elements, you can actually put them into this same video clip one after another, and then Particular will split the clip and emit a random version of that clip for every particle. So in this case, we're just going to use the single clip, and I'll let you guys experiment with that further, but I think this is looking pretty good. Now, one other thing I want to do is set up the particle birth rate with an expression. So this is going to be really easy. We're going to select the gun. We'll choose Effect, Expression, let's see, Expression Control, Slider Control. And then let's bring this up, bring up the effect for the slider control. And then we'll go down to Particular, and we'll Alt-click on the particle per second. And then we'll take the pick whip and drag it up to the gun slider. And what I want to do actually is call this rate, or we'll call this fire rate. And we can change it to make it more or less depending on the speed of the gun animation. So 10 is probably a good place to start. And this is pretty good. The only problem is we want the gun firing to change depending on the surface that it's shooting. So we need to know what that surface is that the gun is pointed at. So we need to do some more expressions. But before we do the expressions, we need to define what areas of the image actually represent a different part or a different surface. So let's create a new solid, and we'll just make this red for no reason, and we'll hit OK. So I'm going to take the pen tool, and we'll shut off the layer, and what I want to do is select different surfaces. So we'll select this concrete wall. I mean, we can include all this if we wanted to. All right. And we can exclude parts too, but I think I'll just leave it like this for now. So this is our first wall. So let's go ahead and pre-compose this layer. So I'll choose Layer, Pre-compose, and we'll call this Wall. Okay. And we want to make sure we move all the attributes. So that's good. Let's create another layer. And this one we'll make brown. That's not brown. Something like that. And this is going to be our dirt. So let's go in here and let's select our dirt. Now we've got some water here. Turn that back on. And let's pre-compose this as well. So we'll choose Layer, Pre-compose, Ground. Or we'll call it, what are we calling this? Dirt. Okay, so close that. We'll make another layer. We'll make this blue. And the blue layer is going to be our water. So we'll go in here. We'll select the area of the water. I trust you guys will be more careful. We are talking about guns here. Pre-compose it, call this water, and move it to a new composition. Okay, perfect. And by the way, I did a little set extension. I put some Detroit buildings in the background just to kind of be the backdrop for this sort of destruction zone. And I don't know if you guys saw the movie Transformers 3. They had this really massive like action scene in Chicago. They were actually going to shoot in Detroit, but unfortunately, there was already too much destruction, so they were going to have to clean it up just so they could break it down again, and it just didn't work out. A lot like this joke. It didn't really work out. Let's move on. So we've got a particular setup to emit this dirt hit. Now, I've also set up the other element. So right here, I'll set this to a blue. So we have the dirt debris element. Now, I also have a wall debris, and I also have a water debris, although water isn't really debris, but I'd already started naming them, and I just had to keep going. So that's how that happened. Now, I'm going to take my particular layer, and what I need to do is set up an expression inside of the particles per second in order to sample the image to tell whether or not a specific surface is selected. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into this and we'll Alt-click. So what we're going to do is bring down the particular settings. We'll go into particular emitter and particles per second. And here we have particles per second. Now I want to make sure we can see our other layers up here. And what I need to do is type in a couple of things. So first of all, expressions are not that hard, but you just have to know what you're doing. So first thing, we're going to type in we have to set up a couple of things here. So what we need to do is define some variables. These are actually codes for Doom. We actually don't need those. But what we do need to do is set up a specific variable for the alpha channel. So I'm going to type in alpha equals, and then I'm going to take the pick whip and click on the dirt layer. So it's going to add the name of the layer right there. And then I'm going to do dot sample image. So this is the function we're about to use that's going to sample that dirt layer. And then we're going to type parentheses, and then we want to select the gun position. So it's not up, so we're going to get an error right now. That's okay. I said okay. Click on the gun and hit P, and that brings up the position. So go back in here, and we're going to pick whip the position. So it adds a bunch of stuff that represents the position. And then we're going to type comma, and then a bracket, and 1, 1 in bracket. So what that's saying is we want to sample the dirt layer that has our alpha channel, and we want to use the sample image position of the gun layer. So the gun layer is sampling the dirt layer, and then it's sampling a 1 by 1 pixel area. And then I'm going to set the channel we want to look at as the alpha channel. So I'm going to type 3. So the way it works is you have RGBA, red, green, blue, alpha. So in a variable 0, 1, 2, 3, 3 is the fourth variable, which is the alpha. So we're sampling the alpha. And another good thing is I'm actually just going to have this whole script in a text file when you download the project, so you don't even have to worry too much about it. But for people that want to understand it, watch another tutorial, because this one is horrible. All right, so the next variable I want to set up is the on state. So the on state is basically we want to sample the fire rate specifically. So it happens to be up, so that's good. So I'm going to take the pick whip and drag it to the fire rate. So when it's on, when that layer alpha is set to 1, we want the machine gun fire to be in full force. So I'll hit semicolon. But if it's off, we want it to be 0. So when it's not hitting, we want there to be no guns firing. Now remember, we're talking about guns and shooting things and all this, but remember, the idea here is a little bit larger than that, I think. It's not just that you can emit particles that create gunfire, it's that you can control what particles emit depending on what specific surface. So there could be some really interesting motion graphics opportunities, music, visualization, all kinds of cool things. So be thinking about what you could use this technique with, because you don't just have to use a machine gun. You could use a 50 caliber, you could use submachine guns, you could use Uzis. So really open your mind. All right, moving on. So now we've defined the on and the off state. So now we need to set up a condition to when it turns on and to when it turns off. So we'll type if the alpha, and remember the alpha is right here, if the alpha is less than 1, we're going to hit return, so a couple of squigglies, set the state to off. Else, set the state to on, and then squiggly. So, and remember, I'm going to put this inside of a project, and you can just copy and paste it, and it should work. Just make sure you keep the name gun, and you keep it capitalized with a capital G, and you may have to redefine these layers here if you don't use the exact same name, dirt with a capital D, and gun. see anywhere else. And then fire rate, capital F, one word. So if you keep the formula the same, everything will be fine. Otherwise, you can just redefine those. So we'll click away. Oh yeah, just have to put a parentheses at the end to close out that group. So there we go. Let's turn off our debris layers. All right, so if we look at this now, we can see that it's kicking up a bunch of debris. But watch what happens when the gun is shooting on the wall. The particles stop emitting. So they emit all the way up until right here. So you can actually see it goes from 10 to 0 once it hits the wall. So now what we need to do is create 3 different versions of the particular for our different surfaces. So we'll take particular, we'll duplicate it. This part's easy. So we're going to hit U, and we're just going to go inside, and we're just going to change some stuff by hand. So first of all, we'll change this from dirt to, say, wall, based on this layer here. And that's actually all we need to do. Now the other thing I want to do is inside of the particular layer, we're going to change the sprite from the dirt debris to the wall debris. So now we can actually see the smoke on the wall from the those hits. Now we can also randomize some more of this, so we can rotate the wall stuff, maybe scale it down a little bit. Let's see, particular size. Now let's go ahead and rename this. We'll call this particular wall, and the one below this particular dirt. And then we'll take the wall and we'll duplicate it again, and we'll call this water. And we'll bring up, I'll hit U, brings up the expression again. We'll click in here, and again let's change this from wall to water, and go into the particular settings, change the layer of the sprite to the water, and we may need to scale this down a little bit. Let's move the gun over to the water. So I don't know what's happening here, but it's crazy. Let's change this to the to the water debris. There we go. And we'll set the transfer mode of this layer to add, and then maybe just lower the opacity. Or better yet, maybe we could just brighten it. Let's go add a curves right to the particle layer. We'll just turn up the brightness here, and maybe go to the alpha channel, crank it up just a little bit. All right, so you saw that as I moved this around, it went from being a dirt hit to a wall hit to a water hit. So again, start thinking about other things that you could perhaps do with this. With the water, let's go into the random rotation and turn it down to about 5, because the water should be shooting up, just like the dirt should only be shooting up. Whereas the wall can have a little bit more random rotation because it doesn't make that big of a difference. So this is looking pretty good. We may want to adjust the the color and all that stuff, but first, let's go and animate this gun so we can have some fun shooting this place up within After Effects. So we'll bring up the motion sketch. Now make sure the background is turned on, and make yourself some room here, and click on the start capture. So nothing's going to happen until you start clicking and dragging. So we're going to start shooting up the wall, and then the ground, and then we're going to shoot the water, and then back over here. And so we went to town just now, so we can scrub through this a little bit and kind of see what's going on. Definitely looks crazy. Now I can see that our bullets are falling off. They're kind of disappearing. So let's go into the wall particle, and let's set the life of the particles to like 10 seconds. And that way they're going to stay up there a little bit longer. And remember, we can color correct those. We can color correct them here. Some curves. We can brighten it up a little bit. Now we can do a quick color correction, just maybe with some curves, give this a little more contrast. Little Warzone green. Nice. Now I can see that our particles are a little too warm. So what I might do is go into the wall or the dirt, choose Effect, Color Correction, Curves, and maybe just pull out some of that warmth and, you know, try to dial it in a little bit. Again, same thing with the wall. Probably just add a tint to desaturate it a little bit. Cool. And the water looks okay. Just water, so who cares? Now, again, you can go in and refine, you know, you can refine the area that you selected. And if you add more surfaces, then you can, you know, just create another copy of particulate. So it's a very scalable concept. And if you have, you know, scenes where you have lots of machine guns, it may seem like, you know, a little extra work to set it up initially. But if you're working with a director or someone who has the creative control, and they say, well, let's change it, let's add this, let's make, you know, less firing, then you don't have to go in and, you know, modify a ton of elements. You can just go in and make a few changes and really, you know, take control of what you're working on. So put the wall behind the dirt. That's the key right there. All right, well, it's definitely looking interesting, very interesting. All right, guys, I'll go ahead and put up that expression inside of the project file. If you have any questions, be sure to check out the forum. We've got the blog, a lot of cool things on there, and hope you guys enjoyed the tutorial. My name is Andrew Kramer, and we will see you next time. When Doom 2 comes out, it's going to be the best.